Al, thank you very much for doing this. This is a real pleasure to talk to you. I'm super happy to be talking to you about iCIMS and learn from what you guys are up to. First, I wanted to just to get a little bit of background. Can you tell us a little bit about your organization, structure, culture? Just give us an idea of what it's like to be in your organization.
Sure, happy to do that. Thanks for the opportunity too, Wayne. New Relic is a really core part of our solution value that we deliver to our customers, and love the opportunity to get together and talk about where we are and what our future is. So iCIMS is a talent cloud company. We help companies with their recruiting and hiring, and so we do that by delivering a talent cloud product that helps them attract, engage, hire, and advance their talent. And our mission is build your winning workforce. And when we think about it, increasingly that's changing as I'm sure we'll get around to talking about the impact of COVID, but it's increasingly a digitally skilled, diverse workforce. And iCIMS has an install base about 4,300 global customers, and we're in over 100 vertical industries. Some really notable companies that we would all recognize, people like Uber using us globally, Wipro, Ulta Beauty, PetSmart, NASCAR, Memorial Sloan Kettering for healthcare, just so many different kinds of hiring. We're honored to help companies build their winning workforce.
Okay. What are you thinking about? Like, what are your 3 priorities right now for your organization?
Yeah. As CTO, I've got responsibility for the products we build and the hosting that we do. And, our view is always, of course, starting with, are we delivering the right solution for the outcome the customer wants to do? And I think in the past, a lot of hiring was viewed to be something where you would say, hey, I need to fill the position. And it was disconnected from the outcome of the business, what the business outcome really needed to be. We realize increasingly our employers are hiring with the intent of, hey, if I don't build this sales force or I don't build this services team, I can't hit my business goals. And it's more of that focus. And so our focus is, are we delivering the right solutions, but then are we delivering them that they perform well, high availability, stable, global scale, enterprise? So when I think about the things that we always focus on, and this is where I think we intersect a lot with the value we have with New Relic, and particularly New Relic One, is that we think about that single pane of glass of a 360 view of the customer through the life cycle, and are we delivering to their expectations to execute on their mission in a big way.
And when you think about the user experience and the impact the user experience has on customers, I love the fact that you're linking it directly to like the corporate outcomes. Can I hit my sales numbers? But when you think about the user experience, how important is that to you?
Yeah, it's everything. Let's face it. Nobody likes a slow system. Nobody likes a system that does things that they were expecting it to do and it didn't happen. And worse yet, and I'm sure you've probably experienced this yourself as somebody hiring people, you're often competing hard for the right talent. And sometimes time is of the essence. And if those services aren't available for you to get that offer approved, that offer letter out, that engagement, you might miss that opportunity on somebody who could be incredibly impactful to your business, or maybe an entire team of people, depending on what your business is. So it is all about making sure that what the customer experiences, and largely our users are kind of a defined set of personas. They traditionally are recruiters, people who are driving hard to attract, engage, and hire that talent. They're the hiring managers and interviewers in your company who are spending cycles. Let's face it, nobody has the extra cycles in their day job to go hire and interview. So making
Yeah.
sure those experiences are timely and productive and useful. And then, let's not forget about the candidates themselves, right? The candidate journey, increasingly the world is, it's mobile.
Yeah.
And when you take into account demographics and class of hire, what kind of jobs you're hiring for, it may be also only mobile. And at the end of the day, that has to be a really smooth experience as well.
Let me ask you this, and I'm not, I don't fully appreciate the product yet, but is it a lot of like workflow automation, the whole synchronization of the process that you guys are known for, or how do I think about the
Yeah.
product?
No, it's a good place to start. That's certainly where our industry started. It's
Yeah.
traditionally the foundation is that applicant tracking system. And, if you're thinking about, hey, how do I go find candidates? I do basic things. I post jobs, hopefully in the right places for the candidates I want. And traditionally it was you would post a job, applicants apply, you would screen them, see if they're a fit, maybe through a different lens of, do they have the right experience and skills, and do they have the right cultural fit, kind of that objective and subjective view of the world. And then you would extend a job offer and, onboard them. That's all still true. What I really think is a great analogy to help you with the context is the reality is this is a consumer experience. And particularly if you're a B2C company,
Yeah.
where the people who are applying for a job at your company are also potentially your customers, that experience and journey you're giving them starts a lot earlier than just, hey, I see this job posted, right?
Yeah.
And so, increasingly the other products that we have in the Talent Cloud are very similar that you might do when you're building a customer pipeline. This is really about building a talent pipeline. So how do you go attract, the right talent to be interested in your company? How do you let them learn more about your company? How do you help them find the right job? Maybe you have many open jobs in many geographies. And how do you, once they get to your website, how do we make sure that they're there? How do we make sure all the other technologies that are at play? There's some studies that say 70–80% of all job searches start on Google. Well, we built an incredibly optimized experience that when employers are using our technology, that their jobs are going to be the ones that Google's going to SEO optimize when somebody says, I'm looking for this kind of position. So there's so much more to it than the old workflow. It's still there, hasn't gone away. But it really is a lot about bringing those consumer experiences into the entire journey all the way through.
It seems like there's a number of moving parts to be able to integrate that into a single experience. The question is, how is New Relic helping you to instrument that sort of user journey?
Yeah, so if you can think about all those milestones in the workflow conversation, we've implemented New Relic all the way through. And if I think about our company journey together, like many software companies, I think, if you go back 10 years ago, we were reactive. When things went wrong, we react to them. When sometimes, in the old days, when something was slowing down, we may not know about it in the old days until a customer called us and told us, right? And that's just not acceptable in the world that we live in today. You're trying to deliver a consumer experience, and add to this a little bit. Our customers are all different shapes, and the workloads are incredibly spiky. I've got employers that are hiring 5,000 people a week. I've got employers hiring 5,000 people a year. I've got employers that are seasonal in their hiring. Think of holiday rush or spring or other things. I've got, some industries where they have a limited number of jobs, but they're really an employer of choice. And so you post a job and they may have literally in 2 days, 50,000 applicants for maybe 150 open jobs. So sometimes they're facing problems that are beyond human scale. And to your point, we want to deliver an experience that is quality at every point in the journey
Yeah.
and from every persona. So we use New Relic, and I think the biggest fundamental shift is we went from being reactive as a business to proactive. And with the use of New Relic and baselining our kind of measure on AppDex, we get a not only, hey, on the whole, how are we serving our customers? We have the ability to do exception. And then we took it another level further. Candidly, it's been wildly successful as we adopted DevOps and CI/CD processes. We also made sure that our engineers have access to New Relic, back at the stages where we're building things and performance testing, back at the stages where we're deploying code in early stages. And, for all of the programs where we're deeply pipeline and DevOps based, it goes from the engineer up through the cloud hosting engineers, all the way into our service folks, that when there is a customer issue and they're engaged with the customer, we want them to have the same transparency. And candidly, in some of our very strategic customer accounts, we actually share New Relic data with them directly for their IT operations, so that they know if there's something on their side that might be related, we're looking at things simultaneously. So a fundamental shift from reactive to proactive,
Right.
made all the difference in our ability to grow.
What's the next step on that journey? Get into predictive and try to avoid.
Yeah, quite a few things. We piloted about a year and a half ago, a software reliability engineer program, an SRE program, and that has paid off in spades. Again, going from reactive to proactive. Invariably, when something goes wrong in your code, when you get through the root cause analysis and the forensics, there were plenty of signs that things were problematic before the service interruption occurred. So our SRE program has really gotten into avoidance by just monitoring and looking at many different things, whether that's coming out of system logs, coming out of a trending, period to period, area to area, all those kinds of things. And again, being able to see all that on a single pane of glass in New Relic One, really helpful, right? The key here is correlation of things. And I think this is where we're now really building a lot of velocity on that. The other thing is, AI ops, and invariably, some of the problems we face are still beyond human scale and human correlation. So trying to take some of the patterns that may emerge, AI ops is really appropriate to do early identification while you still have time to react, and building on our CI/CD and all of the automation of how we deploy, we can trigger a wide variety of proactive actions, like boosting the capacity to a particular customer or to a particular process or API set to avoid the situation completely.
Yeah, we're we're real firm believers in AI ops. So we're going to be introducing a number of products in that category over the next few years. So very excited about that. I think we're all aligned. I'm really curious, because I know you've done a number of acquisitions of talent companies in the past, and those can be challenging, especially being able to get to that single pane of glass and converging all the systems. And I just wanted to touch on for a minute that experience, and what you learned from that would be great to understand.
Yeah, great question. Honestly, I think like most companies, the first couple acquisitions you try to do, you usually miss a lot. The opportunity to improve is always there. We've had enough opportunity that, very assuredly, right from the initial assessment, as we do a technology due diligence, we also try to assess what are they using for application performance management, if anything. How have they instrumented? What are they doing with their logging? Do they have any capabilities? By its very nature, we tend to buy companies that are smaller than us. And often they either have just bits and pieces, or they're earlier on the journey than where we've gotten to. So as part of our acquisition model, we identify real early on how quickly we're going to address how they're hosted. We're all cloud, multi-geo, multi-cloud vendor deployment. very often we're bringing them either into the cloud for the first time or upscaling what is probably a first generation kind of a lift and shift of a hardware model into the cloud. We're often taking them into autonomic services, and a big part of that is instrumenting them with New Relic right from the
Right.
beginning. And that's really critical, because one of the other things is when we acquire a company, the first audience we want to please, aside from the employees, that they're going to have a great job working with us, is their customers, to say, hey, there's huge benefit for you, Mr. Customer. No dread here, because we're going to invest heavily in the scalability, the security, the predictability, the availability of the applications that you know and love, now hosted and managed by, you know, iCIMS. And New Relic's a big part of that visibility. You know, we were talking a little bit before of what we want to do next. This actually comes into play a bit. We actually want to use the information coming from New Relic to better communicate that experience to our customers, particularly to their executives who aren't always on the systems, but want to know that they've got the right partner for the right solutions of what they're doing, and, you know, are very data driven. And with New Relic and our ability to use that data to drive KPIs, not only how we manage ourselves, but how we communicate it, we've tied that in two places. Taking some of that data as part of our customer service manager experience and then integrating, and with our newly acquired customers that come in through acquisition, of kind of showing them the benchmarks they should expect from us. And so those really are helpful.
I think that benchmarking is super helpful. I think that, you know, folks, without that sort of comparison, it's hard for them to gauge whether they're getting good service or not. And I think having those benchmarks are great. It's great that New Relic One is sort of helping you with that. And I guess it comes back to this focus on the customer. It sounds like there's a real strong focus on customer centricity that's running through everything you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about that, and, you know, how you guys try to embed, institutionalize the customer?
Yeah. You know, the great news for, I joined the iCIMS about 6 years ago, and you know, the company is a little over 20 years old. And what I loved when I first joined, and I still love today, is it was founded on the notion of customer experience second to none. And it's hard to do, and it's hard to do on a sustained level. The reality is companies grow, and, you know, people change, and that includes in our customers. And we always come back to, though, if they're not achieving their business outcome using your products, there's no reason for them to remain your customer. And so we try to tie our KPIs and our engagement with our customers to the business metrics of why they acquired our products to begin with, and what changes occur in their business. And when you do that, I think it's a lot easier to realize that it's not really about the product. It's not really around, you know, different automations. It really is about the results. Right. And customers are going to measure you on results, the results of their business, the ROI they get. Sure, that's kind of how a lot of these conversations start. But if, again, I'll draw the analogy on how most CEOs, I think about the world. They think about their customer pipeline. They think about their manufacturing pipeline. I think a lot of talent, a lot of, you know, progressive companies, the CEO also thinks about their talent pipeline. Do they have the right people? And we get to play in that space. And so given that our job is to help people build their winning workforce, that's a very people-centric statement. Not keeping that at the forefront of how we think about our customers, that would be a complete disconnect. And so it really helps. It really does.
Yeah, the customer centricity is important. I think that the focus on instrumenting everything, though, on for the customer journey and persona, that allows you to understand what that customer journey is before even the customer does. And I love the two-way interaction with the customer in terms of having a discussion about their experience and things like that through the benchmark. So that's all really good, really good practices that, you know, all of our customers, including us, we can learn from that. This move to, you know, full DevOps environment, SRE, that you're going through right now. That's a big cultural change too. Guys in IT typically are not. They kind of put a ring fence around their domain and don't let anybody in there. So how are you finding that transition?
We started the journey about 5 years ago, and you are spot on that it is anybody who starts a DevOps journey and thinks it's a technology journey, you're missing the point. It
That's
is
right.
cultural to begin with, number one.
Yeah.
A couple of things have helped. First of all, you're going to fail a bit. You have to expect that you're going to fail on this journey at some level early on. This kind of change that is a combination of culture, technology, skills, all of that is changing when you adopt this. And it's really hard to say there's a linear line. Everybody wants a linear line, but it doesn't work that way. And we definitely took a couple steps forward and a couple steps back before I think we kind of honed in on how to focus. Now, one big part is it started around the time that we also made the move to cloud about 5 years ago. And so the first thing that you realize is, look, if you're doing a lift and shift into cloud, you potentially could still run that old IT department model the way you used to. But the minute you start adopting autonomic services, guess what? You no longer have DBAs and Linux administrators. You just don't. And so suddenly you have this skills gap where, okay, these folks understand enterprise and enterprise scale, but their skills are not relevant for what you're trying to do. So one thing we did is we really heavily invested in upskilling the staff and team that we had. We trained and certified everybody on multiple cloud vendors to make sure their own personal careers were moving forward with a benefit in addition to the business goals we had. And I think that was a little bit of the magic,
Right.
We're investing in you because you need to be able to do this, but it's also the big win for the company that now enables and unblocks this kind of different way of thinking about how scaling the business. We also adopted a lot of new tools, including New Relic, that weren't maybe implemented the same way traditional versions of these tools were used. You never would have exposed an AppDex score in the old days of an IT model to your customer, let alone to your developers. The fact that we've got developers running a New Relic dashboard as they write code, or service people bringing this up as they try to diagnose a problem, it's just very different, and that's helped. It's helped a lot.
Well, that's great that you've been able to break down that barrier. It's really interesting what you mentioned about developers with an AppDex score. We've been looking at use cases for developers and trying to improve our user experience specifically for developers. But we know developers are so attached to their IDEs and don't want to interrupt that workflow for a developer in the IDE. How's that been to introduce like AppDeck to a developer?
So we did it indirectly, because I think if you just, to your point, look, everybody wants to use the tools they're most productive and used to using. A part of our agile process has this notion of definition of done. The stage gate in an enterprise agile process, there's a lot of iteration with customers, but you also have enterprise stage gates. And part of the definition of done is actually having gone through a scale performance test. And there's kind of two ways of thinking about that. There's hey, are you able to handle, 250,000 people hitting the enter key at the same time in this piece of code, that kind of thing. We have about 2.5 million users. At any given time, we can have that kind of concurrency in different code modules, going on from a global source. So there's that aspect when you're building new things. But the other one that matters a lot as part of definition of done is making sure you haven't made things run slower. So you've modified some code, maybe put some new features in, but have you done the regression of making sure you're still hitting our targets? And maybe even more importantly, if this is an area of the code that we've targeted for performance improvement, have you hit the exit criteria defined in your definition of done? But what that drove was, okay, well, how do I measure that? And now, okay, great. We've got this great tool set for you to use. So it wasn't, you got to go use this tool. as part of getting you in a DevOps model to be able to release your product, you've got to hit the definition of done. And we have some tools here to help you. A little bit of carrot, a little bit of stick, but a lot more carrot, honestly.
Okay, that's good. It's interesting. We think the world is going to catch up to you. I think that a lot more developers are going to ask for telemetry data to inform, the way they develop code and the things that are important to them. We think that, there's lots of uses for telemetry data up and down the software development lifecycle. So it's interesting. I'm really interested in how you guys are using it and what you found. We're a little bit concerned about like the developer pushback that don't touch my tools
yeah, that takes leadership. I'm sure you know this at New Relic.
Yeah.
A modern commercial cloud-based application by design has to be performant by design, secure by design, globalized and accessible by design. Those are all part of our agile process in the definition of done. And part of our onboarding process is to educate the things that they don't teach in school. And, I know you know this, but it's stunning how many people come out of school with a comp sci degree or even worked at some places and have never done performance engineering or performance design reviews, let alone performance measurement as part of the development process. If you don't do that shift left, then you're doing a lot of firefighting at enterprise scale, or you're very slow to market. And look, that's the oxymoron of a great CI/CD DevOps process. You're really like an athlete. You want to be releasing code often, and at high quality. And the more you practice, just like in sports, the higher your quality is going to be. So that means it can't be something you're doing at the end of process or only at the end of cycle, because it's too late. You haven't built it in, you're bolting it on, right? So I think we've done a good job defining an agile process that is focused on those shift left processes as the base criteria of building a world-class product. When you do that, there's a lot less pushback about what are the tool sets that I'm going to work with.
It's really interesting because you're really taking the team approach where the whole team now has visibility to the same data, which is not always true in enterprise. How much has that advantaged you in terms of like everybody having the same data, maybe during incidents, but outside of incidents, like how is that working for you?
Well, look, I think you're spot on when you mention incidents. That's where it starts. That's the great catalyst. If everybody's working on different data during an incident, you got an issue. But the reality is our industry is endemic of what I call the Tower of Babel. We have 2-3 people, each in a different role, all have their own perspective on information, and they're almost talking past each other because they're using the same words, but it's in reference to a different context or a different data set. I think when we first started adopting ISO processes and consolidating our logging and consolidating our APM and other things so that it was just built into how we're compliant, it really took a lot of the noise out of the system. Because when people are working from the same context, data, reference, customer experience is a big one. Without a metric like an AppDex and a trending, somebody's, their perception of what experience a customer has is probably incredibly narrow and may be too specified of being too bad or too good by a small sample size. When we can look at, AppDex information at the large or the narrow and trend it over time, you now have a whole different perception if you're working off of that set of shared data.
Yeah. I think it's important for teams to be looking at the same data. You made some wonderful points about that. It's important for us at New Relic to give visibility to as many members of the team as possible. So I think that you're really exploiting a lot of the things that we're excited about. I'm going to wrap up with just a couple of quick questions. One, how can we better help you? How can we do more?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think you're moving in all the right directions. I'll tell you the area that, from my point of view, COVID has accelerated, and that's the whole world of video.
Yeah.
We were early innovators in our space, in the hiring space, with video cover letters, where somebody might pre-record the equivalent of, when the old days of you submitted an interview and you wrote a cover letter to the hiring manager or recruiter. We had innovated with the idea that you could do that via video, and that was 7, 8, 9 years ago. If you look at what's gone on now, our world has changed dramatically and accelerated with COVID. 5, 6 years ago, the base communication vehicle between a recruiter and a candidate, or a hiring manager and a candidate, was email. And the way you reached out to a candidate often might have been a email campaign. And we know from the consumer world, hey, a 4% open rate on emails.
Rate, yeah.
Woohoo! Celebrate, get the campaign out.
Yeah.
If you get a 2% response after they've opened it, you're really knocking it. About 4 years ago, we introduced text, SMS, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger as the vehicle. And again, it was driven here. Everybody's got this. This is what people want to communicate. And now you see an engagement where when you do an outbound, you might have a 70, 80, 90% open rate. And once they do open, a 90, 92% response rate. It is fundamentally different. And that was all pre-COVID. And we knew we were on to something. One, because so many of our competitors introduced texting capability to their products after we did it. We knew we had the right thing. But more importantly, our customers in certain industries were just being wildly successful. Where in the past, the time to hire might have been 4 days, 5 days, a couple of weeks. They now were hiring in 1 to 2 days, with this kind of an engagement model. But now let's move to where we are today and what COVID has done. Video was growing. We, like I said, early on had the notion of a video cover letter, but where are we today with COVID? You and I are talking over a Zoom chat. Yeah. People are hiring, building businesses, acquiring companies, engaging customers all over this. So, when you think about what we're doing today now, we have video that is, and some of this through acquisition, you mentioned, we have now the ability that, you can start the interview with a video and send the invite with the video. So it's kind of live video. We also have taken not just the video cover letter pre-recorded, but maybe you actually want to go through a screening set of questions pre-recorded because you have so many candidates and you want to assure that they're not stuck waiting to talk to somebody, but they can pre-record their answers.
Right.
And then, what we've really aggressively done is taken and realized that we have to bring our technology into the flow of the work where the user is living. And so if you look now, we're embedding, and we just released interview feedback into Microsoft Teams. So maybe you're doing an interview on Teams and you're the hiring manager, part of the interview panel. Our technology is floating right there in Teams and you're giving your feedback real time. And you might be chatting with the recruiter who's also asking you questions to ask the candidate. So it is just coming full force here. It was coming, but now it's here. So we live with, standalone live video, pre-recorded video, and embedded video. New Relic, keep going. Help us realize that this is the flow of work. And this is the next communication pipeline that we have to worry about the experience. And as you know, it can be a whole lot more complicated. The world of the internet can be a really lousy place depending on where you are in the world and the kind of services that are available to you. And for that candidate experience to be high quality, productive. Right now, we have a great session going here. I see and hear you very well. I'm sure you've had the experience like I've had where it stutters or garbles or there's noise in the background. Hiring somebody over that's a really lousy experience. And we're going to want to know that's going on and see if we can build AI ops to autocorrect, compensate, capacity spread, or interrupt and restart if necessary. So there's so much to do. I'd love for our journey to continue together there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you. I have some ideas. The conversation has spurred some real ideas, some things that we have not yet released, but I think you'd be an ideal candidate to work with us on. So really, really excited about the relationship and where you're going. And congratulations. I think you guys are using New Relic the way, make us happy using it the way it was designed. Our product managers would be very, very happy with this use case. And really, really appreciate your time today, Al. This has been wonderful just to educate me about your business
Yeah,
and how you're using New Relic.
thanks for
And
the
let's make sure we
opportunity.
stay in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. Just let me give a compliment back. When I met the New Relic team and the account team, I said, look, this is a strategic relationship for me. I want to be a lighthouse account. I want to use the product the way you've designed it. I need you to put skin in the game to make sure I know what I'm doing and how to do that. I'll put
Yeah,
skin in the game to make sure we're doing it. You know what? This has been a great relationship, and I think we're both benefiting from it. So thank you.
thank you very much, and you have a wonderful day.
Take care, Wayne.